And 4 days after Tim passed away, so he passed away on April 20th, 2018. April 24th, I met a woman. She literally just showed up at this place that I was, where I was doing some workshops, and I'd been crying all day. And then we were just talking casually, like, hey, how you doing? What do you do? And she said that she was a medium, a psychic medium. And I had no intention of trying to contact or reach out to Tim. But after a few days, like, I was in so much pain, and I was having a birthday party that weekend. It was my 40th birthday, and I had been planning it for months. And so I was really trying to, like, show up and have a good time for my birthday and celebrate. And I was just absolutely devastated when it was announced that his death was by suicide. And that was like, just a really big fear that was the case. And I reached out to this psychic medium on April 27th, because I'd finished work that day, and I was going to get, like, decor and stuff. I tend to throw parties that are very, like, over the top in decor and theme, and I was having a mermaid themed party, so I was, like, going to get all these things for the photo booth and decor and whatnot. And then I'd also gone to the dollar store and gotten a bunch of, like, really just, like, cute pink things. I was just wanted to have it be, like, a fun, cute party. And while I was there, I had seen this rainbow piñata that I really, really wanted, but I just decided not to get it for some reason. Like, it didn't fit with the rest of the decor necessarily. And I'm super into rainbows now. If you know me, it's like a big part of my decor and everything. But at the time, it was, like, not so prevalent, and my house was still decorated to the nines in like Twin Peaks decorations and things that I had made. So I didn't get the rainbow, the piñata, and I reached out to this woman. Her name's Britt, and I reached out to her to find out what happens when people die by suicide, according to her experience as a psychic medium. I shared the details of this particular conversation in the video Why I Spoke with GQ about Avicii, so you can watch that to reference what I'm talking about now. There's so much more that I want to talk about, but it was just very validating. It confirmed that Tim was around me, which I had been kind of feeling and sensing, although I wasn't totally sure, but I did feel it. And I decided, okay, I'll reach out to her. I'll talk to her. She said that he wanted to talk with me more. We set up a time to talk on April 29th, which was, I'd had the party. I had my birthday party the night before. I had a friend spend the night, and we went out to lunch. And then I went at 2:00. I met with Britt. And the very first thing that Britt shared when we were connected by phone, and she said that Tim was really waiting patiently to talk with me, and that he was showing her a rainbow. Now, I'd also had, like, rainbow lights in my altar the first time I connected with him, but this was, I immediately thought about the rainbow piñata, that not only had I wanted it for my party, but a friend of mine brought the exact same one. He showed up with it, and this is my friend Phil, and he is also, he's a psychic empath as well. He does tarot readings. He's very intuitive and very also kind of dialed in as a medium. He has connection with spirit for sure. And he had brought me the piñata, so I was like, okay, that's really beautiful. Like, Tim said that it was that it was a gift from him, and it was his way of letting me know that he was there at my birthday party. And so I took some photos of it that night in my photo booth, and this is one with me and my friend Liana. So he also started to reference specific things that like, there's a part of me that's like, I shouldn't say this because it's embarrassing, but it's also just true. Like, at the time, I make really silly, memes and just stupid, like, photo collages, and it's just one of, like, my creative outlets. And I had a friend who was really into cupcakes, and And I had made a lot of really like silly memes involving cupcakes and taken some really silly, spicy photos. And part of this was happening the week that I was actually working with Tim. And what he started to do immediately during this conversation with him was actually reference things that were going on in my life that whole time that I was working with him, even like when I was home or earlier in my lifetime or even in the future. So he was looking at many, many different things in my life and talking about it. But he mentioned the cupcakes and I was like, what the fuck? Like, how does he know about that? How does she know about the cupcakes? And I mean, it's actually like really fucking hilarious that this was the thing that he was like, hey, I saw the cupcakes. And I was like, okay, that's super weird. And Britt I turned like bright red and I was just like, I didn't even really say anything to Britt. I was like, I think I know what he's talking about because I never eat cupcakes. I'm gluten-free. They're never like around, but I had them from a work party and I decided to make all these silly photos with them. And he also referenced another like prop, like this Twin Peaks sort of prop. I was doing cosplay and I also took a lot of like really stupid, silly photos with that. And I was like, okay, that's weird. He's like watching me in my room. Even before he passed away, he was like going back to see what I was doing at that time. And this kind of reminded me, you know, like Britt said, spirit isn't voyeuristic, but I was beginning to wonder like what's going on. And a couple years earlier, I'd had another experience that kind of made me really think about this because you know, and the fact that like spirit is always around us and our guides and guardian angels and spirit team and loved ones, ancestors, whoever is around us, they see what we're doing and what we could be doing. And excuse me, I had a session at Liberate Emporium in Hollywood with a guy named Paul Jacek, and I didn't know him. I'd never met him. He knew nothing about me. I literally was walking by one day because a client had canceled that afternoon. So I walked into Liberate and I booked a tarot reading with him and he blew my mind. You know, he just went into detail about my life and was talking about me doing writing. And I'd been wanting to write. My plan was to start writing my memoirs April 30th, the day after my birthday. And so he was giving me all this accurate information. And then he said, I don't know what this is. Your guides are showing me something and I don't know what it is, but I'm going to show you. And he like demonstrated this physical movement that they were saying that I should be doing. And I knew exactly what it was. I practiced transcendental meditation and I also practiced the advanced techniques of transcendental meditation. And one of those techniques, it's called yogic flying. And this doesn't mean that you're like flying through the air, obviously, like Tinkerbell or Peter Pan, but that you're actually physically moving and lifting off the ground and coming down and kind of bouncing along. It just looks like hopping, really. But the feeling is complete freedom. It's like just complete bliss and freedom. Your body feels light and it feels honestly magical AF. And it gives so many benefits. It's like the benefits of transcendental meditation times a billion. And it gives better clarity, intuition. It puts you in tune with the laws of nature that are really governing and upholding everything in the universe. And it just gives so much clarity and peace of mind and direction. And at the time, I hadn't been doing it as much because I had really been doing a lot of intensive 12-step work to recover from some childhood trauma and behavioral patterns and issues that I had been dealing with and codependency. And so I was really, really doing this deep dive into this because I'd hit an emotional rock bottom with this when just some, deep stuff got triggered, came to the surface, and it was time for me to work through it. And so I had not been doing the yogic flying. And for Paul to tell me that my guides were like, you should be doing yogic flying, it's like, wait, how does he know about He didn't know about yogic flying. He didn't know what I looked like when I was doing yogic flying, but my guides were like having him do exactly what I do when I do it. And so this blew my mind. Like I was thinking about it for days afterward. And yogic flying is really powerful, both for individual, but there's also a lot of scientific research where it really actually helps, because it enlivens consciousness and love and harmony and coherence in the atmosphere. So when people are doing it, especially when large numbers of people are doing it, then actually crime rates go down, political tensions ease, violent homicide and sexual assault goes down. Scientific discoveries and research actually improves and increases. The economy improves. So there's been extensive research on this. So it is really beneficial. And I really, strongly believe in it, but I also am human, and, I have human things that I really was dealing with at the time. And so this, coming back to my conversation with Tim, now here he was looking at things that I had been doing, I thought, in the privacy of my own room. But no. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. I don't know what all he wants to talk with me about, but I'm sure it's not just the cupcakes. So I was all ears, and I have some notes that I've written down, and also this kind of just in a way put me at ease, because like I'm a total weirdo, and like Tim, and I believe it's Tim. I believe it was Tim at this time, especially, I don't know. I don't really fully understand what happens when we pass away. He did have many conversations with me about what happened and what he went through. And, I don't know, like once we cross the veil, even after we pass away, if we can still communicate, but I believe so. I believe that the energy or intelligence or sort of imprint of that soul and that soul's personality can come through any time. But, even if it's not Tim, it's still a really interesting story. And to have a total stranger, the psychic medium, give me information that is, coming from someone somewhere about me and my experiences. Well, okay, I'm curious and I want to know what's going on. And so he, very clearly wanted to talk with me, and he starts showing Britt a theater, like a cinema, a movie theater. And he said, he's sitting in a big theater looking at you and thinking it's great to be with you. And I confirmed with Britt that when we met and were working together in his home, it was in his cinema room. So we were in a theater room, and I was sitting in the front of the room, like in front of the screen, and I can still so vividly see him sitting in his chair every day. And I remember every detail of all of those days. And he told Britt that he wanted to thank me for all that I had done for him during that time. And I said, well, tell him thank you. He said, no. He told Britt he knew that I would not take credit for how much I had helped him, and said again that he wanted to thank me. And he assured us that he is now surrounded by love. He said that the love in the universe is so miscommunicated and misunderstood. And I said, I wish I could have helped you more and that I had been there sooner. And he absolutely insisted. He said his soul would not have been ready to connect with mine any sooner. And that if we had met when he was 17, 18, or 19, or even in his early 20s, that his ego would have been too big and he wouldn't have even let me into his life, and he wouldn't have listened to me. He told Britt that he dumped on me, and he just emphasized dumped. And he told her, you don't understand. I dumped on her. He said, nobody understood my pain. Aaron was the only person who understood me. And it was Aaron's courage and strength that allowed me to dump on her. I never dumped on anyone like that. Not my friends or my family, not even my mom. He said, I am so sensitive. I am in so much pain. That's what he said. He had, an intense emotional release the last day that we were working together. And he said that. Now, I didn't know that this was very unusual for him to express this. I didn't know him that well, and I wish I had known, and I wish I had known him better. To give some context, at that time, again, I had been in 12-step programs for a few years prior, and I was so used to, I'd hit a rock bottom, and I was so used to actually crying myself. I'm so sensitive. I was so used to crying myself, or being around other people, men and women who were crying all the time, or talking about their deepest, darkest secrets and struggles, and which I think is really beautiful and healthy to express this. So for me, I was just wanting to give him support and hold space for him. And like, I just, this is the moment. Like, I just wish I had just given him a huge hug and just held him and just, could have told him that it would be okay. And like, he could talk to me about anything, even though, I was there providing a specific service. I really wish I could have conveyed how much I wanted to help him and be there for him, and that I understood like what he was going through, because I related so much. And this is actually what concerned me. Nothing that he was really saying or doing, but what he had told me he had been through. I was like, holy shit, like we've been through a lot of the same stuff, and we're sensitive in the same way. And that really scared me, because I know life has been difficult. Like, life has not been easy for me and most people that I know, especially people who are in recovery for addiction or have some pain and trauma. So I didn't realize, he was emphasizing again that like he really dumped on me, and I didn't understand that at the time. I just didn't, because I didn't know him. I didn't know that this was not normal for him. And so I think we had very different perspectives on what happened that day. And, since he passed, I've actually talked with several people who are Swedish and even his father, that like men, especially in that culture, like they just don't talk about their emotions. And it's in his song, Somewhere in Stockholm. I'm from a place where we never openly show our emotions. We drown our sorrows in bottomless bottles and leave them to float in the ocean. So, and this song, I feel like, is him, Somewhere in Stockholm, more than any of his other songs. I feel like it's him talking. And so he kept saying that he was dumping on me, and just kept emphasizing how helpful it was that I was there and allowed him to do that. The other thing, and so just one other note on that is that I was supposed to meet with him 2 more times before he left for Oman, and that did not happen. And that is something that was really like incredibly infuriating and just, frustrating, because like, who knows what could have happened if we had spent more time. And I really got to, anyway, I just can't even go there. But, okay. So coming back to the conversation that I was having with Britt and Tim. So Tim started showing Britt a movie poster, the Into the Wild movie poster by the guy who goes up to Alaska and he lives in a bus. Spoiler alert, he ends up dying, and it's this whole thing. And I left home when I was a teenager and hitchhiked and traveled, and I even went to a remote island and lived out in the woods by myself for a long time. And so this particular movie was kind of very personally resonant for me. And like, I totally could have died in my adventures for sure, 100%. I have so many friends who died. And that really scared me. And that's what really sparked me to meditate and start doing things to improve my mental and physical and emotional and spiritual health and well-being. So that's really what kind of saved me in the end. But Tim said that, and I had just been looking at the movie poster for Into the Wild. I hadn't seen it in years. I was looking at Instagram a couple days earlier, and I saw the movie poster, and I stopped and was thinking about it. And he said that he had been there with me when I was looking at that image on Instagram, and that I should write about my stories. And that's what I was thinking about. I was like, I should write about, that was my plan, was to start writing my memoir about my adventures, as a young traveler. And so he said that I was there, and he said that sharing about my experiences and my perspective on them will take me to the next level in my life. He insisted that I start journaling and writing about my life and big events, important events, connectivity, writing them out in diagrams, and to share my moments and times and my depictions and revelations. He said millions of people will relate to it, and that it would be translated into many different languages for audiences around the world. He told me to depict my thoughts and feelings in a moment in time and the lessons I learned from them, and that I should start now and go back, but I have to start. He said, start with a chapter, My Week with Tim or Avicii. Start there and go back. Now, remember, this is in 2018. It's now been 5 years that I've been having experiences and a shared death experience with Tim. So it's not My Week with Avicii anymore. And that in itself, that I worked with him while he was alive, that in itself could be a whole book or movie or series. But I hadn't told any of this to Britt. Britt didn't know me. We had just met. I'd been planning on writing my stories anyway. And I had been wondering about whether or not I should write about my experiences with him, because it was so relevant to my experiences and what I already wanted to write about as a highly sensitive person experiencing trauma and recovering, and, just dealing with like overwhelming passion and intense desire for peace and enlightenment and liberation. And this was something that I saw in Tim more than anyone I've ever met. And that's one of the reasons why I just connected so much, even within like the first 25 minutes of talking with him the first day. It just completely opened my heart. And so Tim assured Britt to tell me to be sure that this is that this is what he wants. He wants me to write about him. He said that I should write freely and let the pen flow, and that I should channel him or ask Britt when I needed his help. And, again, it wasn't just that like Tim was telling me to write and do this, although he was very strongly giving me the direction to do this and the permission to do this, but also this had come up in previous readings that I'd done with Paul Jacek. So, and continued to, because I met him again after Tim passed away as well. Several psychic mediums all confirmed the same information that Tim was conveying. And I was too traumatized at the time after Tim died to actually do much about it. But I'm looking through my notes. So the other thing that Tim said was that he adored me, and that he said our souls were like magnets to each other. And, again, this is like, I felt such a strong direction. Like I had to be there. I had to be there for him that week. And I didn't understand why. And he talked about wanting to hug me, and that he didn't think that I was a hugger, but that he loved my hugs, and that I was squishy, which is really cute, because I'm a big juicy girl. And it kind of makes me think of like hugging my grandma, and this was just something like, when you just vibe with somebody and you just want to give him a big hug. And that's how I felt. I still remember showing up at his house the morning that I was teaching him meditation, and he was coming up the stairs, and he just, I just wanted to throw my arms around him, because I just felt like, it's such a soul brother, not like a crush or a romantic thing, but just like a long lost brother. That's what it felt like. And I don't typically hug my clients, because I'm a survivor of like trauma, and I'm in groups of recovery for people who are survivors of sexual trauma. And so I'm just very used to people, like there are a lot of people I know who don't like to be touched or hugged. So I'm never going to especially a client, I just don't just go up to them and hug them. But he came up the stairs and threw his arms around me, and it was just like, oh, like so great. So he also said that he had been with me the previous night at my birthday party, and he described to Britt that he saw me holding a green cloth with some lights. And this was extremely specific and confirmed what I'd been feeling at the end of the party as I was taking down my photo booth, which was a green cloth with like party streamers. And and lights, and I was carrying this all out to my car, and I could feel him with me, and he said he was watching me like take it to my car, and it was just a complete confirmation. This is a photo in the photo booth just before I took it down. Now he talks about elevating. He said, elevate, elevate, elevate. Most of the things that he said to me were not even so much about him in this first conversation. A lot of it was like, honestly, unsolicited advice. Advice to me. He said there were a few things that I needed to do for myself. He said I needed to improve my self-confidence. Fair. He also said I was quirky but charming and that he adored me. He told Britt, he was like, Erin has no idea what is coming, but it's something big and something good. He showed me circling a pond, and at the time I didn't really know what he meant, but a few months later, after just not sleeping for months and being in so much pain and grief, he strongly pushed me to leave Los Angeles and to go to a temple, and I ended up going to this campus, this spiritual campus where there was a pond, and I walked around it daily, so it made sense later. He said, not now or in the next few weeks, but that eventually things would make more sense. And I hope that that continues to be true. He said that he really wanted me to trust him, and he showed Britt that he was extending his arm to me and for me to grab his hand. He said that we have so much unfinished business, and that there was a reason that we met, and that I am to help elevate the understanding of life, loss, and light workers. And he further elaborated on this quite a bit, because we had conversations after the GQ article stuff that where we talked in depth about what he wanted the Tim Bergling Foundation to be, and a lot of that was about light work and empaths and having empaths be part of it. I don't know that that will ever happen with the Tim Bergling Foundation. I haven't spoken with his family. I don't know if they'd be open to that. And he has emphasized many times that they don't understand the connection. They don't know about the connection that he and I have had the past 5 years. It has been not possible for me to talk with them about it for reasons I don't want to get into now, but I don't know. I don't know that this will ever happen or that we'll ever have this conversation. I'm just sharing it now because he has really over and over and over again emphasized that he's like, you're so concerned about like my family and it's this many people, but you talking and sharing it's to help this many people. All the other sensitive souls and creatives and, kids who are just flooded with music and ideas and inspiration all the time. And they don't know what to do with it. And they're, really getting it shut down because society doesn't understand, or know how to support them. Being an empath is not an easy thing. And we have so many children coming in right now who are highly evolved, sensitive, very special souls. The world doesn't know how to support them, and we need to support them. We need to support these kids. We need to give them tools, outlets, an understanding of who they are and how to develop and enliven and activate and strengthen and support their gifts and abilities, because we need them. The world needs them. They're here. He assured me that through my work and writing, I will help to elevate consciousness around the world by sharing my truth and by sharing about simplicity, vulnerability, and trust. He told me that I need to trust, listen, and just be. And I just want to say, it's not like, I don't think I'm like the only person on the planet who has this role. I watch people all the time. I listen to people all the time who are doing this very thing. And it's so beautiful. I think many of us have this role to play right now. I think it's very, very important. And also what he was saying really resonated with my desires and my vision for what I, feel my soul's purpose is. I'm reading notes. I have a lot of notes about this particular conversation. The rest I have in notebooks locked up in a vault somewhere. But, I just want to say this time, like, I honestly didn't know if I could trust him. And I was so upset that he was gone. Like, I was completely devastated. And yet he wasn't gone. Like, he was there with me, and having this connection and communication with him and validation of the impact and connection that our souls had in some ways made it hurt so much more that he was gone, because I wanted more than anything for him just to be around and, to be with his friends and family and to be able to talk with him sometimes and work with him, and I didn't even know if I ever would have seen him again, but I just wanted him to be alive more than anything. And I had a lot of reservations about communicating with him at all through the psychic medium because of past experiences that I've had. I'm very sensitive and open to spirit, and I have been since I was young. And so I had a lot of fear around this because I didn't know what it was or how to work with it. And I had, been told some true information that scared me and some misinformation because people don't know and they're scared. People are scared of death and dying and the afterlife and spirit. And there's a lot of misconception about this in religion and spiritual communities. So, so I didn't really know, and this might sound hypocritical that, I had so many conversations with him over the past 5 years, but this also felt like this was a big part of my soul's path as well. And he did confirm in later conversations. He said, this was a soul agreement that he and I had. He talked in further conversations about our past lifetimes and how we had known each other. And multiple people have talked about this without me even telling them that I was grieving somebody who had passed away. They started talking about this spirit that was around me and our connection and describing him and describing Tim in detail. So, and Britt also was saying that this was really unusual for spirit to be so bold and to be giving so many directions in a session. And even she was a little bit surprised by how much he was telling me to do. Because, he was insisting that I remove my roadblocks and that I should have no fear and I should just listen and stay calm. And I mean, I was a goddamn mess for a long time. So I don't know if I had been calm this whole time. I haven't been, but so it was a lot. And he also talked about things that really had nothing to do with like a bigger life soul purpose. He talked about the fact that he thought that I should be really loving and enjoying the car that I was driving. And he showed me driving like a specific car. And this might seem random, but I had actually been really ashamed of showing up to his house. I didn't know who he was, but I knew like where his house was. And I knew he probably had money and whoever lived there probably had money. And a lot of people in Hollywood really care about physical material things like their cars. And so I had this old Nissan that my mom had given me, and I parked it up the hill because I didn't want him to see it. And so I would park up the hill and walk down to the house every day because I was embarrassed about my car. And he said, no, you should love your car. Anyway, and I have since sold that car. Now I don't have any car, but he also asked Britt, Britt asked me if he owed me money, and I was like, no, but she said that he was insisting that there was like money coming from him. There hasn't been. I'm certainly open to that, but okay. And then I think that he just felt like he owed me spiritually because he has said many times through different people that like I helped him so much. I helped give him closure. I helped give him peace. And I helped him during that week, and that I was, like I showed up with unconditional love and no expectations, and he was really, really grateful for that. And he has also done many things out of gratitude, showing and telling me things, and even showing me and helping me awaken to my gifts and abilities in very drastic ways that I'm extremely grateful for. Tim also started to describe to Britt that when I'd been working with him that we were communicating telepathically. And I know you're probably like, okay, you had me. No, I'm not so sure. Maybe I didn't have you. But this is the thing. Psychic medium communication is it's telepathic. Sorry, I was just getting a little pop-up thing here. I want to disappear. Okay. So this is the thing. Psychic mediumship is telepathic communication. And this might sound crazy. At the time, even I was just like, whoa, because I had had experiences where I was sitting next to him the first day, and then people were documenting some things, and I was just talking. I was giving like an overview about meditation and the benefits, and all of a sudden it's like the same thing that happened when I felt I needed to go to his house. It was just like, you're going to be part of telling his story for the rest of your life. It was just loud and clear, and I was still talking. I was like, what's going on right now? And then I asked, like, is it going to be good? And it was just like, no. And I just didn't understand like what was going on. I just kept talking, but I was just like, I don't want to be part of like any kind of documentation. There was somebody with a camera. I was like, I don't, and Tim responded to that. He told them, and like, we weren't verbally communicating, but he told the person with the camera, like, put the camera down. He said something in Swedish, so I don't know what he said, but he got the memo. And this was the first thing where I was just like, maybe that was him. Maybe that was him talking to me. Maybe exactly. And I've since done a lot of research on telepathy, and C.W. Ledbetter, who has written a lot of the text that the Theosophical Society bases their knowledge off of. He said, in the mental world, one formulates a thought and it is instantly transmitted to the mind of another without any expression in the form of words. Therefore, on that plane, language does not matter in the least. He's talking about the mental plane. It's like we have different planes of reality, causal, spiritual plane, different layers of even our, and not just like the physical body and the chakras, but we have different layers of spiritual matter, for lack of better words. And Guy Leon Fair is another person who's done research on telepathy. There's probably been many studies, but this is just one book that I've written, that I've read, is his book. I think it's called Twin Telepathy. And he talks about, especially amongst twins, it's very common for them to have telepathy. And because when there's like an emotional or heart bond, it's much easier to have telepathy. And I've had this experience since where there's been somebody that I've like really just loved. And, again, kind of as a brother, it was just like, an immense amount of love. And it just kind of opened. It's almost like kind of momentarily stepping into this other dimension where I kind of come out of like the normal day-to-day thoughts and thinking that I'm in. And then it's just like such clear communication. And I remember just like telling my friend, that like we were dancing and it just shifted, and we don't speak the same language. Like he would speak a little bit of English, but not much. And I just remember having this mental like transmission to him, and he was just like, he just like shifted, like he heard it. and he was like, what is going on right now? And he shifted and responded, and it was really fascinating. It also, I think, really scared him. And I know that like a lot of this stuff can really scare people. And this is why telepathy is not a standard means of communication here. Because if you listen to near-death experiencers, and I highly suggest that you do, every single one of them describes the telepathic, just nonverbal communication that they have on the other side. So why do we require to have vocal, verbal communication here? I think because of fear, shame, and guilt. People don't want other people to be able to read their thoughts. So we don't. Because we're operating so commonly from for lack of better words, a lower vibration or lower frequency, or, from a place that we're not necessarily living out our highest good. So we don't want to be seen. And oftentimes we don't even want to see ourselves. We don't even admit to ourselves what we're doing. And this, I think, is often, like the root of evil is this guilt and shame. And then, just not connecting to our higher self, to our soul, to a higher power, God, love, whatever it is. And so we forget and we stop operating from that place. It's not that like God is evil or that it allows it to happen. It's just that we don't align. We need to evolve as a species, and we go through lessons and our own personal growth. And part of this, having been through like rock bottoms myself, sometimes I'm really extremely grateful for that, because it propelled me to look at things differently and to start to make changes. And I'm not saying that everybody has to have a rock bottom. I think we can elevate consciousness on the planet through meditation and through that field effect, like I was talking about earlier with the yogic flying. I don't think everybody has to like meditate, but I do think being honest with ourselves and reflecting and looking at it and being willing and able to, to look at it and make changes is really important. I do love the 12-step programs for that reason. You really thoroughly look at things that are causing you to behave certain ways, and frustration and resentments. And, it gives you a lot of reflection and ability to make changes and tools, support. Okay, sorry, I got off track. So coming back to the conversation that I was having with Tim. I almost don't even, this is another one, do I want to say this? Okay. This was something that really validated for me that this was Tim and this was real. Hold on. I was sitting on a stool, much like I am right now when I was working with him mostly. And at the time, I was renting my clothing because I was teaching, in Hollywood, Los Angeles. I wanted to look good and professional, and it was just easier to rent clothing. And I'm tall. I'm almost 6 feet, and it's hard sometimes to find clothes that fit me, that are long enough. And I was wearing this Rachel Antonoff dress, this really cute dress that was, it's not really meant to be a short dress, but just I'm tall. And so it was shorter on me. And when I would sit down, it would kind of come up a little bit. And so I would put my sweater on my legs to cover it up. But so Britt was sitting there, and she was on the phone, and she was like, I'm not going to tell Erin that, because the next weekend we were actually meeting in person. So I was thinking about that. I just see her so clearly when I think of her. But we were on the phone, and she said, I'm not going to tell Erin that. What? And Tim was telling her about my short skirt. And I started laughing so hard, and I was like, okay. And he said, she just showed up wearing this short skirt and her legs are hanging out and she just doesn't care. And he said he couldn't believe it, and that he was just standing, he showed her an image of him just standing there, with his arm pressing, she just kept teaching. What? Who is this person? And he said that I had been a breath of fresh air to him because I was just being myself. And he talked about my earrings and the jewelry that I was wearing. I had these big wood earrings that a friend of mine makes, and a lot of bold, jewelry. And he was commenting on those and what I was wearing. And I was like, okay, this is definitely him, because something else kind of funny happened around this when I was there. And so I was like, okay, this is weird, but real. Again, he talked about being surrounded by love. And he shared that when his soul left his body, there were things that he went through, but that he ended up at a different level of understanding, and that he had never cared too much about the surface of life, and that he feels bad about people not knowing about the love that they can experience. And he was not talking about romantic or sexual love, but spiritual cosmic love. He said he fell short of doing all that he could for the world, and that he is only concerned with love. This has been such a huge gift since his passing, that I have been more open to and celebratory of just love with friends and people. And especially in the last couple years, the last year that I was in Fairfield, Iowa, the spiritual center that I moved back to. I left Los Angeles, and I met and became friends with so many students, especially a big group of Ethiopian students who were so friendly and so loving. And who brought so much joy and love into my life. And I'm so grateful for that experience and how much Tim helped me to really appreciate this. I'm talking about love and joy and sobbing because it was so painful. I've heard from so many people who were in so much pain because Tim represented this love to them, and then he was gone, and it doesn't make any fucking sense. It doesn't make any fucking sense. And having to accept this has not been easy. He said the love is so miscommunicated and misrepresented. I knew that Tim wanted nothing more than just pure, unconditional love and the highest level of consciousness possible. I knew this from the first, not even 20 minutes into my first meeting with him. This is one of the things that I just adored that. And I was so excited. He said that while he was alive, he had been in so much pain and that he needed the relief, and that being on earth had been so hard for him. His soul was so light and he wanted that love, and he had, unwavering passion and internal drive. We had another whole conversation about that in other conversations, but I want to stick to this particular session that happened on April 29th, 2018. He was telling me to collaborate. He told me to collaborate with specific people. I mentioned this in the video, why I spoke with GQ about Avicii. He was talking about people I knew that were in the music industry. And I ended up talking with them like over the next few days after that conversation. And one of them reached out to me to see if I would do this interview with GQ. And she didn't know even that if I knew Tim or how I knew him, but I had just posted something, wishing him well on Instagram. And so she reached out, and Tim had been explaining to me, her and other people that I would collaborate with. And he talked a lot about the Tim Bergling Foundation, and he insisted that I go home and write that night. And I just start write. And so I started writing about the Tim Bergling Foundation. This was April 29th, 2018. And it was weeks before I even spoke with his family, because in this session, he was insisting that I do not talk with his family because everybody was in so much pain and grief and chaos, and nobody would understand, and it was just too much. And so I waited. Long story short, I did have conversations with his family, and then I didn't, because something really incredibly unfortunate happened, and it prevented me from meeting with his family. And so it has not happened. And he has even in recent conversations said that they do not know and they don't understand the connection and communication that we've had. I don't know. So at the end of this conversation as well, I do mention it in the other video, but I'm going to reiterate it because it was really cool, actually, and it's something that has been a recurring theme. He's often talked about Chris Martin and Coldplay, or I've had really intense experiences around Coldplay and Chris Martin specifically that have been really cool. But at the end of this particular conversation, he said, "Listen for the Stars" song, and I didn't know his music, a lot of his songs, and I had never listened to Coldplay. And the following week, once I'd been in touch with the GQ writer and I wanted to have a follow-up conversation, like, should I do this interview? What should I talk about? I was getting ready to go meet with Britt, the medium, and I was listening to Tim's music as I was cleaning my apartment, and the song, you're a sky full of stars. Anyway, the Coldplay song, Sky Full of Stars. So I was listening to it and I was like spinning around my room. I'm going to just spin on my stool. Hold on. I was like, I don't want to stand up because then it'll just be like my boobs, but... So I'm listening to the song and I'm just hearing, like, I'm getting like, this is Tim writing, or, you know, this is like his song. And I look, it's a Coldplay song. I didn't know that they had collaborated. And then I looked it up online, and Tim had co-written and produced and played piano on that song. So it was such a confirmation. It was like, oh, this is the Stars song. And I was seeing like all this beautiful stuff. And then it was the first thing that Tim mentioned when I went to meet up with Britt. She said that he was just like spinning and like dancing with his arms out and spinning in circles, and like, this is gonna be so big, because, you know, just his legacy and everything that we could do to honor him and to bring more love and light into our hearts and into the world. And that is the very best thing that we can do for ourselves, and to honor him and all of the souls that have left, maybe too young, too early, because they were too sensitive. And the world and life can be very, very difficult. But it is the love, where we come from, why we're here, and what is going to change the world. And I love you. There's more.